Today, International Banker is joined by Olukayode Pitan, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Bank of Industry. And we're going to discuss the bank's work with micro, small and medium enterprises, the African Continental Free Trade Area, and the bank's transactions in the Eurobond market. Really good to have you here, Olu.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
Now, BOI has accessed over $5 billion through the international capital market over the last few years. What would you say has been the single most significant factor in the bank's favour that enabled it to access such a substantial sum?
Thank you very much. The Bank of Industry, it's not as young as most people think. The bank is over 60 years old. It's the largest, the most successful DFI in Nigeria. And then the government backing is very strong. We have two major shareholders, the federal government through Ministry of Finance Incorporated and Central Bank of Nigeria. These two major shareholders have assisted us with bank guarantees. Most of what we have done in the last few years, we had federal government or central bank guarantees. At the same time, we have been very innovative in the structuring of those facilities. The bank itself, locally, is rated by Fitch and the local rating agency as a AAA, even though we share the same rating as the country when you're talking of raising money internationally. So this is a bank that is well run, is profitable. On the average, we make about $100 million profit annually. The balance sheet has grown. We're about $5 billion in balance sheet size. The corporate governance is very good. And we have banks in Europe and America who have been like a club of banks who have supported us over the years. So when you put all of these factors together, good management, profitable, non-performing loans are very low, support of government, good corporate governance, then it explains why we have been successful in all our outings.
Now, I mentioned the Eurobond market in my introduction, and in February, BOI concluded a debt-raising transaction of 750 million euros in the Eurobond market. The bank's maiden Eurobond transaction and the first successful transaction of its kind by any national development finance institution in Africa. So, what were some of the key milestones in achieving this landmark? And for what specific purposes within Nigeria's industrial sector were the funds eventually used?
Thank you very much. Like you said, that was the first Eurobond transaction coming out of Nigeria. Why was it successful? About 3 or 4 major factors. Number one, it was backed by the sovereign. To have the backing of the sovereign, it's an elaborate process. Number one, the Federal Executive Council has to approve it with President in Council. At the same time, you have to get the approval of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Rep. So for you as an institution owned by government to have gone through all those processes and to have all the approvals, it means one, there's trust, and there's confidence of government in how you run your institution because they are backing you up, so that's very important. Secondly, the bank has gone to the market before doing syndications that have been successful. So the bank is not an unknown entity. It's just that we had not accessed money through the Eurobond. This year is not the best of years to go to Eurobond market to raise money. So the benchmark was 500 million euros. But at the end of the day, it was oversubscribed. So there was a tap, and we raised 750 million euros. The bank itself is doing well. And it was well packaged, and support of government was there. We have a club of banks that believe in the bank, and it's the first Euro benchmark for the country. So there are many firsts, with that transaction. We went to the market in a very turbulent time, and we came out, it was successful. So those were the things that happened. The second question you asked, what are you going to do with the money? Now, Bank of Industry is a DFI. Basically, we help in terms of the manufacturing area, the small, medium enterprises in the country. We are a bank that gives out facilities on the average in single digits. So most of our loans don't exceed 10% per annum. In a country where inflation is about 20%. So basically, we are putting the money to use in the areas of emphasis of government. Healthcare, manufacturing, small businesses, especially after the COVID-19. Many of them had not been able to come back to life, and some needed some levels of support. So the funds, agri-processing, technology, basically in all sectors of the economy, particularly light manufacturing, solid minerals, many areas where we put money. That's what we use the money for, general purposes.
I also mentioned the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area. How does this agreement impact on BOI's overall strategy, if at all? And what are some key ways in which the bank can best support enterprises to capitalise on this free trade agreement across the continent?
The agreement, it's a landmark agreement, because what has happened is that now you have created a market for about 1.3 billion people, in terms of opportunities and what you can have annually, maybe about $3 to $4 trillion. So that's a big market. Most African countries don't trade with each other. So it's a big market. But then if you have this big market and you want Africans to trade with each other, somebody has to manufacture or produce the goods that are needed. So where we're coming is that we're going to help Nigerian enterprises, to build capacity, to expand production, to be able to produce for that big African market that has been created. So it's a win-win, for African countries, and be able to save money, and to grow internally. It's a big market that definitely any forward-looking African enterprise should look into that market to play in it. It's a big $3 to $4 trillion market.
And thinking of enterprise, kind of job creation seems to be a very key part of BOI's mandate when deciding to lend to Nigerian enterprises. Is it an absolute necessity that the borrowing enterprise has created jobs, or is in fact planning to create them in the near future in order to obtain funding from the bank? And what about during the recession, when enterprises might be forced to trim their workforce?
You're right. There are many things we consider before we finance a project. We look at, for instance, where do the raw materials that you require, where is that coming from? We prefer that you have your raw materials coming from within the country. Why is that? Because then we don't have to spend extra foreign exchange importing the inputs that you require. No. We like projects that what you produce can be exported. Why is that? So you can bring in foreign exchange to the country. We love projects that definitely create jobs. It's one of the mandates that we have, because we have a teeming youth population, that we need to create jobs for. Even during the pandemic, 2020, 2021, we disbursed over $1 billion, creating about 1.3 million jobs. In the last 5 years, we have disbursed about $3.3 billion to roughly about 4 million enterprises.
You've got something called the Growth Platform, which sounds like a particularly effective solution for providing credit to underserved and underbanked micro entrepreneurs. Can you very briefly describe how this solution works?
Okay. Now we have what we call the BOI platform. Essentially, what do? We use technology, big data, and then we have people on the ground, where we're able to do end-to-end solution, because there are many Nigerians who don't have bank accounts. We have government, for instance, during the pandemic, they wanted to give out money to people in different parts of the nation, many of them without bank accounts. So this platform that we have was able to help government to do that. Using that platform, over 2 million Nigerians were reached. That same platform, the World Bank recently came and it's been approved. There's a program, NG Cares. It's one of the programs of the World Bank to help countries recover from COVID. For Nigeria, it's a $750 million US program called NG Cares. And there are 36 states in Nigeria. Out of those 36 states, 30 of them already, have appointed BOI, as implementing partner, for that NG Cares. So using our platform, in the last few years, we have been able to reach over 4 million Nigerians. It's a platform that has won awards, as one of the biggest platforms in Africa, that's able to do end-to-end using technology and big data, to get things done.
Now, as I understand it, BOI recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian Exchange, and I'm going to quote from it, to deepen capital market reach, build the capacity of stakeholders through financial literacy, facilitate market advocacy initiatives, and, importantly, promote listings. How significantly do you envisage such a partnership helping enterprises of all sizes within Nigeria?
That's a very important partnership. Why is that? When you look at the universe of Nigerian enterprises and you ask yourself, how many of them are over 50 years old? Very few. Why? Because many of them, as soon as the main promoter dies or something happens to him, the company is no longer on the map. Now, we are encouraging them to have better corporate governance, because before you can be listed on the exchange, you have to have proper corporate governance. It allows the companies, many of them, to outlive, the founders. Not only that, they are able to raise capital from that market. So it's not only the debt market you rely on. So we on our, from the point of view of BOI, the people that we are financing, we are telling them there are advantages to having your companies listed. We have interest in that. One, it deepens the market in Nigeria. The market is not very deep now. We can deepen it. There are many companies that can be listed. So we help them to have the capacity, to be listed, and we encourage them to do so. So for the stock exchange, they get to have more companies, and for us, that promote entrepreneurship in Nigeria, we begin to see Nigerian companies that can outlive, the promoters, the initial entrepreneurs, and ultimately it is good for the country. So it's a win-win.
It's kind of creating a sustainable model to attract more people into the market.
Oh, yes.
Very good. Well, the federal government appointed BOI as the implementing partner to manage its 75 billion MSME Survival Fund. This initiative, which has already supported more than 1.2 million beneficiaries, provides grants for vulnerable MSMEs to meet their staff obligations and secure jobs within the MSME space, despite the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, question for you, how does the bank identify and define vulnerable MSMEs?
First of all, the survival fund that you mentioned, 75 billion, roughly, depending on the exchange rate that you use, between 160 million to 180 million US dollars. It was one of the programs of federal government of Nigeria during COVID to say, look, how do we identify and support vulnerable enterprises or individuals? And for instance, they looked at the schools. Some of the schools were shut. The students were at home. The proprietors of these schools could not pay the teachers. So we had one of the things under that program was payroll support to help pay the teachers while they were at home, not really working, to sustain those schools, so that after COVID, schools could get back to normal. There were artisans, there were transporters, those are the type of people that the government chose, because many of them were daily paid people, they got paid if they worked that day. Now, if there was COVID and they were not getting paid, there were no jobs, they were vulnerable, So we had people on the ground who had to go around, they had associations. For instance, if you are a vulcanizer, they had associations. If you're in transport business, they had associations. So we had people on the ground who went across the whole nation. We have agents, the agents, who would take their biometrics, BVN, for those that have bank accounts and things like that. So we could identify, in every state, depending on how much money government wanted to spend in each state, And we had people, about 22,000 people that were recruited to work in 36 states, using big data. We had the system developed for this, their biometrics, and picking the sectors that government had picked. Like I said, people that were vulnerable, people who were selling things, went to the markets, So that was how those people were captured. At the end of the exercise, like you said, over about 1.3 million people, were touched, got the money. And it was, like I said, end to end, the money went to their bank accounts, so it was very successful.
And supporting this kind of approach, I guess, in October 2021, BOI became an official signatory of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Banking. This is a single framework for a sustainable banking industry developed through a partnership between banks worldwide and the United Nations Environment Programme Finance Initiative. In doing so, what responsibilities are required of the bank?
Well, first of all, we're the first DFI that got that one signed in Nigeria. When you talk of responsible banking, basically it's aligning some of the objectives of the bank with that of the country, and with the SDGs. Basically this is what the country wants to achieve. You are looking at the Paris Agreement on climate change and everything. What type of projects do you finance? What do you do? How do you bring down the carbon emission and everything? Ultimately, how do you make the world a better place for the future? How do you, basically, in summary, it's what it says. How do you do banking in a responsible manner? Taking into account the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, making it fair to all, and having the corporate governance, to ensure that all that you say you're going to do, that we are doing it, So that's what it's all about, and we are happy to be part of it.
Through its corporate social responsibility programme, the bank is supporting the establishment of several technology hubs across the country. How is this particular initiative progressing?
It's going very well. First of all, as part of our corporate social responsibility, we said to ourselves, we're going to make the hubs, available, at least one hub one hub per state, which means we're going to have at least 36 of those hubs. It's a good place for the young ones. Nigeria has a lot of youth. Some of our people are very clever, and we are saying the world is IT, is going IT. What can we do to have a place to incubate, these young ones? And some of the Nigerians, they started out small, and if you look at about 3 or 4 of them have become unicorns that are worth over $1 billion, and they started out small in Nigeria. Can we develop more Nigerians to do that? So we are looking at university campuses in some states. We're looking at areas where we have a lot of youths who have computer literacy. We are providing these hubs where they can do their businesses, where they have fast internet, and they're able to create, and sometimes we bring people to train them, And we've done about 10 thus far. There are about 4 that is work in progress, but ultimately we're going to have at least 36 in the country. It's done very well, and we plan to do more of such. It's basically bringing out the best of our youth and trying to see how we can get more of them into the world market, they can create products, and we have seen products that were created in Nigeria, software, apps from Nigeria that are now worth over $1 billion.
Now, as Chief Executive Officer of Bank of Industry, do you have any unique philosophies of banking leadership that you wouldn't mind sharing with the rest of us? So what advice would you give to anyone looking to embark on a career within the banking industry, either in Nigeria or globally?
I have been in banking and finance now for slightly over 30 years. And if you ask me, what are those things that you need to have? The skills to survive this industry, and to thrive, and be successful. You need to understand that banking is a trust business, So anyone who plans to have a long-term career in banking must be honest, must have integrity. You must work hard. But more importantly also, you have to be innovative. Banking is changing. Anybody that wants to go into banking now, if you come to me and ask me for advice, I will tell you that your IT skills are very important. Because the fintechs, they have come into banking. You will see more of artificial intelligence in banking in future, So anyone that wants to be in that space, for the future must be such that I think numbers is better. You have to be good in numbers, and you have to think widely. You have to be innovative to structure transactions. For instance, some of the deals that we have done in Bank of Industry, the last one we did in August of this year, we wanted to get a good rate for the bank, but we knew we couldn't get a better rating than the sovereign. So we had to look for other banks to wrap around BOI for us to be able to enjoy that. It was innovative, and we were able to save a lot of money. Going forward, you have to be able to do those kind of transactions. Definitely people will talk of turbulence, but in turbulence is where you make the most money also. So bottom line, you're going to be in banking and be successful. You must be honest. You must have integrity. You must keep your words. Be innovative. That's what I will say to the people coming after us.
Olu, thank you very much indeed for your time today and those great insights you've shared with us.
Thank you very much.